and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about one of the most asked questions that I get as an IBCLC and as a registered general nurse, and that is, what is the story with pacifiers, dummies, soothers, or whatever it is that you call them when it comes to breastfeeding? Today I'm going to be answering your burning questions when it comes to this topic, what you can look for when it comes to choosing the soother of your choice, and when is a good time to start using one, some of the benefits and some of the cons. So make sure and stay tuned, and I'm going to dive straight into that topic for you. So the first thing, and quite possibly one of the more important things to be looking for when it comes to deciding whether or not to use a dummy or soother with your little one, is timing. So if you plan on breastfeeding or chest feeding your baby, one of the really important things to look for is the amount of times that your baby is going to stimulate the breast. In those first 6 weeks in particular, maybe slightly shy of that, our body is really relying on that stimulation to lay down the milk supply that you're going to have for the remainder of your breastfeeding journey. So in that time, we want to use our baby's suckling instinct and their energy that they have to suckle at the breast, so that they can use that energy to stimulate the breast to make more milk and to lay down a really abundant milk supply. If we are ignoring our baby's feeding cues, or maybe kind of using the dummy almost like you would chewing gum between meals to, have that sort of soothing effect, but also to maybe extend the time between meals, you are risking not using that stimulation to your advantage. So what's really important, and what we would almost always say, is to look for your baby's feeding cues first. So feeding cues looking like hand to mouth signals, turning, rooting, looking for the breast, sticking their tongue out, opening and closing their mouth, light fluttering behind the eyelids is like a really early hunger cue. I almost go as far as to say that in the first 6 weeks after birth, the minute your baby opens their eyes, offer the breast. If they don't want it, they're not going to take it. The reason that I say look for your feeding cues first, as opposed to just assuming that your baby wants a dummy or to soothe themselves, is because you are using that energy to your advantage. So the first tip is become familiar with your baby's feeding cues. I am going to link a little blog post that I have done all about baby's early feeding cues and how to know when to offer your baby the breast in the cards down below. So do go and check that out if you're not massively familiar with what sort of the early to late feeding cues are. The next thing then would be the timing. So when we talk about that kind of 6 weeks, we're talking about where our milk supply is really reliant on supply and demand and that kind of like hormone response in those early days. So we want to make sure that we're laying down that milk supply. So some parents choose to avoid using a pacifier altogether until such time as they are really well established and feeling really confident in their breastfeeding journey. And some people say, I'm just going to wait until the 6-week mark until I know things are really good. So make sure you are choosing what's right for you and for your family. So let's get into the pros and cons of soother use, and then later we'll talk about which ones I prefer over another brand. When it comes to giving a dummy, us lactation consultants aren't completely anti-dummy. We don't hate them at all. In fact, having your baby suckle is really, really beneficial for them. Not only does it help them to kind of calm down and soothe themselves, but it's also really great to help them kind of regulate. So for a baby who is maybe a little bit more unsettled, a little bit more colicky, suckling like that can be really lovely. In fact, it's one of the 3 S's that I mentioned in my How to Soothe an Unsettled Baby video. So make sure and hit that one down below if you haven't had a little look at that already. When it comes to the way that our babies suckle with a soother, it's really important that we are doing our best to pick a soother that is going to mimic what we want them to be doing at the breast, or mimic the way that we want their oral function to be working at its optimal. So we have to look at what exactly our mouth and our tongue is doing when our babies are feeding at the breast. So the first thing is they'll be latching on nice and deeply. It's a little bit of a misnomer that the lips have to be both flanged out like that kind of special K shape. That's no longer something that we are teaching or looking for. In fact, the top lip only has to stay in neutral. We do like the bottom lip to be flanged out. So not worrying too much about that, but the mouth has to be open quite wide. We also want to see our baby's tongue not only cupping the breast or soother, but using this wave-like peristaltic motion way. So there's quite a lot going on. And for those babies who are maybe tongue-tied, there's some kind of oral issues going on there, whether it's their suck isn't quite coordinated. Maybe your baby was born a little bit preterm, so kind of 36 weeks or so. Maybe your baby is working kind of post tongue tie release, and we want to kind of get that tone and all of that going again. In that case, your lactation consultant might actually recommend soother use. So when it comes to picking one, they're not all made equal. And I want to use, I've kind of actually went out and bought, 4 different ones that I want to kind of go over with you and show you why I like them and why I don't like them. But bearing that in mind, what our body and what our baby's body and mouth has to actually be able to do, it will make a little bit more sense. So when we think about our baby's tongue function, we want optimal function to be cupping, lifting, so elevating, extending, and lateral movement. So your baby's tongue has to be able to do quite a lot of things, and then tone in that kind of coordinated suck, swallow, breathe fashion. So when we're looking at dummies, we want to make sure first of all that they encourage your baby to have a wide open mouth. So for instance, this one I do not like because it goes narrow at the very end. So what actually it encourages is a closed mouth. Okay, so we think of our babies at the breast, they've got a nice open mouth. So this closed like this encourages the soother to actually stay in your baby's mouth when they fall asleep, which sounds like a good thing, but actually we want our baby to be settled and then sleep. When we're talking about our baby's kind of optimal oral function, we want our baby's tongue to be elevated to the roof of their mouth when they sleep. This is for a kind of optimal sort of dental hygiene and oral function down the line, and it's all to do with kind of the shape of your palate. So if your baby's got a soother in place and it's got this flat shape here, which helps them to helps it as well to kind of their tongue to flatten out, not only is it encouraging baby to have a flatter tongue, so it's thereby reducing their kind of ability to have that nice cupping shape, but it's also encouraging your baby to sleep with a dummy in their mouth, which stops the tongue from elevating to the roof of the mouth. So this, which is called an orthodontic dummy, that flat shape at the bottom, you can see how it narrows, is not one of my favourites. The next one that I'm going to talk about is a cherry shape, and this would probably be one of the top ones on my list, but not my ultimate favourite. The reason I really like it is because it's got this nice rounded shape, so it encourages baby's tongue to cup like that, as it would around the breast, so it's really beautiful for kind of oral function. But I don't like how it narrows here, so that it encourages it to stay in baby's mouth. So if you were having looking for a cherry-shaped dummy, this is like a natural rubber one. I will try and link my favourite dummies down below. But if you're going to go for a dummy like this, you just want to be really careful that you make sure and remove it when your baby is soothed or when your baby has actually fallen asleep, so that the tongue can elevate to the roof of the mouth. The next one then, actually, I don't have a good example of it, but it's like the Wubbanub style dummy, where it's sort of cut, it's rounded, but it's like a straight line to the top. There's no like little bulbous end at the bottom. And those are actually kind of one of my favorites. I do quite like them. The reason for that is that your baby does spit them out when they fall asleep. So it's that typical kind of soothe and then sleep, the optimal function that we do want. And also it's got that nice rounded shape, so it encourages baby's tongue to cup like that. So they're kind of one of my more favorite styles. The one that I really, really love and have only actually recently come across, and this little man, who, yes, I am joined by a sleeping baby for the majority of the videos that you'll see over the next while, is my favorite. And I've only just come across this, and while he doesn't take one, I got it just for my client's post-tongue tie release because I think it's just fabulous. This is the Ninico. Very different in shape and size. It's lovely and flexible like this. I really adore it. What happens with this that's really nice is as baby latches on, you can see they've got that nice wide open mouth. I'll try and insert a video or a little clip somewhere of baby actually suckling on this. So Their mouth is open wide when we come back to the function, big wide open mouth, open latch. So it's creating that kind of nice release around here that we really, really want. You can see hubby walking around in the background. It encourages baby's tongue in that nice kind of rounded motion here to suckle as it would at the breast. It's soft, just as it would be at the breast. And it also does not stay in your baby's mouth because it's not narrowed at the bottom. So it means that your baby will suckle on this and then they'll spit it out. So we've got that optimal tongue elevated to the roof of their mouth. So this is the Ninico pacifier. It's the first time I've seen anything like this. There are a couple of other ones that are somewhat similar, but this is absolutely my favourite. I got this delivered to Ireland and it was €50 with post and packaging, so it is expensive. I'm going to be trying this on one of my friend's sweet babies very soon, and it's amazing because you can actually see inside. It's clear, so you can see them how they suckle and look at their tongue function. It's really cool for a complete tongue function nerd apparently. So really, really awesome. I do have a discount code that I will link down below and that they have very kindly given to my families who join on here. And if you do, give this video a watch and decide to either choose, a different dummy or choose to remove your pacifier after your baby has fallen asleep, do let me know whether it's changed your journey at all or whether you found this video helpful when it comes to choosing what type of dummy to go for. But in a nutshell, you're talking about starting with removing your dummy when your baby falls to sleep, making sure that when you're going to pick a dummy that you go from kind of a firmer option as opposed to a more soft option. That way they're going to actually spit it out themselves. And that when it comes to feeding your dummy, offering a dummy to your baby, that you make sure that you are really kind of well established in your breastfeeding journey. Make sure that you are using that sucking energy that your baby has for bringing in that milk, for laying down that foundation of milk supply. So I always think kind of in around 5-6 weeks is a good time to do that, and make sure that you're really closely observing your baby's feeding cues, so that when you know that you are giving your baby all of the nutrients and calories that they require first, and then using the dummy to kind of soothe those suckling needs, those high suckle needs that our newborn babies have. Make sure and check out the little free infographic that I'll have down below that you can check out your baby's feeding cues with if you're not quite sure about them. And I will see you in the next video. Let me know if you found this helpful or if you've gotten any ideas for future videos. I would love to hear them.